Long before the word Canada ever existed, before European maps showed the shape of the Atlantic coastline, before any parliament stood in Ottawa, this vast northern land belonged entirely to its first peoples. The story of Canada begins thousands of years ago, with Indigenous nations whose cultures, languages, and innovations shaped every corner of the continent. Across the tundra, forests, lakes, and mountains lived the First Nations, the Inuit of the Arctic, and the Métis, born of later cultural blending. Their societies were diverse and sophisticated. The Haudenosaunee built longhouse democracies, the Plains Cree followed the buffalo migrations, the Nuu-chah-nulth mastered ocean hunting in the Pacific, and the Inuit crafted ingenious technologies to survive the Arctic. This land, rich in natural resources, waterways, and ecosystems, was already home to millions when the first European sails appeared on the horizon. In the late 10th century, Norse explorers briefly reached Newfoundland, creating the settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows, the first known European presence in North America. But it wasn't permanent. What truly changed history was the arrival of John Cabot in 1497, sailing under the English flag. Soon after, French explorers like Jacques Cartier navigated the St. Lawrence River in the 1530s, claiming land for France. France's vision was a vast colony, New France, built on trade, exploration, and alliances. The fur trade exploded, creating partnerships with indigenous nations who became essential economic and diplomatic allies. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain founded Quebec City, the first lasting French settlement. Its cliffs, fortresses, and stone buildings still stand today as a symbol of the country's early foundations. The 1600s and 1700s were defined by conflict. Britain and France fought repeatedly over North America. The struggle reached its climax during the Seven Years' War, 1756 to 1763. The decisive moment came in 1759, on the Plains of Abraham, where British General Wolfe and French General Montcalm both died in battle. The British victory led to the Treaty of Paris, 1763. France ceded nearly all its North American territory to Britain. A new era began. But Quebec's French population remained strong, and the British established the Quebec Act of 1774, allowing French language, civil law, and Catholicism to continue. This law would later become one of the foundations of Canadian identity, diverse, bilingual, and multicultural. When the American colonies rebelled against British rule in 1776, Canada became a safe haven for those who remained loyal to the Crown. Tens of thousands of Loyalists fled north, settling in what is now Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec. Their arrival transformed the population, politics, and culture of British North America. New provinces were created. New towns grew. The seeds of English-speaking Canada took root. When the U.S. declared war on Britain in 1812, Canada, still a British colony, became the battlefield. The war forged legendary figures. General Isaac Brock, the British hero who died defending Canada. Tecumseh, the Shawnee leader whose alliance with Britain was critical. Laura Secord, who walked 20 miles to warn of an American attack. The war ended in a draw, but the Canadian border remained, and national pride surged. Canadians had resisted a much larger power, building a shared identity. Throughout the 1800s, Canada grew through waves of immigration, railway expansion, and economic change. But internal challenges, political deadlock, and fears of American expansion pushed leaders to unite. The architects of Confederation, John A. Macdonald, Georges-Étienne Cartier, and others, designed a new political system, a federation of provinces under British parliamentary tradition. On July 1, 1867, the Dominion of Canada was born, uniting Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. The Canadian flag wasn't yet the red maple leaf, but the country finally had a government of its own. Confederation was only the beginning. Over the next decades, Canada grew across the continent. Manitoba joined in 1870. British Columbia in 1871, encouraged by the promise of a railway. Prince Edward Island in 1873. Alberta and Saskatchewan in 1905. And finally Newfoundland. The Canadian Pacific Railway, completed in 1885, linked the nation from ocean to ocean. Thousands of laborers, European settlers, Métis guides, and especially Chinese railway workers, endured brutal conditions to build it. The expansion west also brought conflict, including the Northwest Resistance, led by Louis Riel, a Métis leader fighting for the rights of his people. His execution remains one of the most debated events in Canadian history. World War I, 1914 to 1918. Canada entered automatically under British rule, but soon proved itself fiercely independent. The battles of Vimy Ridge, Passchendaele, and Somme became symbols of Canadian bravery. Over 60,000 Canadians died. The war transformed Canada's global status. World War II, 1939 to 1945. This time, Canada declared war on its own, marking true sovereignty. Canadian forces fought in the Battle of the Atlantic, the Italian Campaign, D-Day, Juno Beach. The war fueled industrial growth, new rights for women, and the foundation of modern Canadian society. After 1945, Canada evolved rapidly, joining NATO and the UN, creating universal healthcare, welcoming large waves of immigrants from Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, developing a strong middle class, embracing multiculturalism as national policy in 1971. In 1982, Canada achieved full legal independence through the Constitution Act, including the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Today, Canada is known for peacekeeping, technological innovation, a strong economy, cultural diversity, environmental beauty, Indigenous reconciliation efforts. A nation built on cooperation, compromise, and cultural respect. Canada's story is not just wars and treaties. It's the story of millions, Indigenous nations, French settlers, British immigrants, newcomers from around the world, all shaping a vast land into a modern, peaceful nation. A country still growing, still learning, and still writing its future. Subscribe for more history video. Which country history you want to know? Please tell us in comments section. Thank you.